Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's story. It was a rainy Thursday afternoon when Sophia found herself in an unfamiliar luxury hotel lobby, adjusting her jacket and staring nervously at the reception desk. She had promised herself she wouldn't let her nerves get the best of her, but being here felt like a world away from the diner where she worked. Her shoes, though clean, were scuffed, and her dress, a second-hand piece she had picked up last month, seemed out of place in the polished environment around her. She took a deep breath, glancing at her phone. Table 7, she muttered under her breath. This was it. She was here for a blind date, a date she had barely agreed to, but now, standing in the lobby of this fancy hotel, she wasn't so sure about it anymore. Her phone buzzed, the screen lighting up with a message from her best friend, Jenny. He's a businessman. You'll be fine. Sophia forced a smile at the message but still felt like a fish out of water. As she scanned the room, she spotted a man sitting alone at the far end, engrossed in his phone. He was impeccably dressed, a tailored suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. She hesitated for a moment, then walked over, forcing her nerves aside. "Hi, you must be Kevin," she said, her voice a little higher than usual, trying to sound confident. The man looked up, blinking in confusion. He froze for a second, as if trying to make sense of what was happening. Hi. Sophia, right?" he said, his voice calm but clearly unsure. Sophia felt her heart sink, but she quickly brushed it off, laughing awkwardly. "I know, this is a little weird. Blind dates are always a bit awkward, right? Jenny told me you might be a little shy, but don't worry, I can do all the talking." She slid into the seat across from him, trying to relax. The man, who introduced himself as Ethan, seemed momentarily puzzled, but then, for some reason, he hesitated. He didn't correct her. Instead, he gave her a small, almost amused smile. "Yeah, blind dates, they are something else," he said, taking a sip of his water, his eyes lingering on her with a quiet curiosity. As the evening progressed, Sophia found herself speaking more and more. She told him about her life as a waitress, her dream of becoming an artist, and how she hoped to someday open her own art studio. Her words flowed easily, fueled by her nerves, but also by an unexpected connection she felt with this man, who seemed so different from the people she usually interacted with. Ethan, on the other hand, listened intently, though his responses were shorter and more thoughtful than she expected. But what really intrigued her was the way he looked at her, not with the cold, calculating gaze she was used to from the wealthy clients she occasionally served at the diner, but with something gentler. She was just about to ask him about his work when her phone buzzed again, this time with a message from Jenny. "Hey, Sophia, where are you?" "I'm at table 7, waiting for you." Sophia's stomach dropped. The table she had mistakenly sat at was not the one she was supposed to be at. Her face went red with embarrassment as she looked up at Ethan, her voice barely above a whisper. "Oh my God, you're not Kevin, are you?" she stammered. Ethan's smile faltered for a brief moment, and guilt flashed across his face. "No, I'm not," he admitted, his tone surprisingly gentle. But before Sophia could escape, he stood up, his voice soft yet steady. "Hey, it's okay. No harm done. But let's make the best of it, yeah? I mean, we've already started talking. He offered a small, reassuring smile, and Sophia, her heart pounding in her chest, didn't know how to react. She had been so embarrassed, but there was something about the way Ethan looked at her that made her pause. Maybe this wasn't such a disaster after all. She took a deep breath, trying to regain her composure. Okay, well, this is a bit awkward, she said, nervously tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. But, since we're here, how about I buy you a drink to make up for it? Ethan's smile widened, and for the first time, his eyes softened. As they sat and continued their conversation, Sophia quickly realized that this was unlike any other conversation she had ever had. Ethan wasn't like the typical businessman types who only cared about deals or numbers. He listened. He laughed at her stories. And she, for the first time in a long time, felt truly seen. Little did she know, the night would end with a revelation that would completely change her life. As she said goodbye and walked back to her car, she had no idea that the man she had mistakenly called Kevin was actually one of the wealthiest men in the city, Ethan Parker, the CEO of a tech company worth billions. But even as she replayed the events in her head, one thing was clear, she had never felt such a connection before. And so, their story was only just beginning. The next few days passed in a blur for Sophia. She couldn't stop thinking about the man she had mistaken for Kevin. Ethan Parker. The encounter was still fresh in her mind, his smile, his quiet charm, the way he listened to her as if she wasn't just another waitress in a fancy restaurant. For once, she felt like someone actually saw her for who she was, not just what she could offer. It wasn't the first time she'd felt out of place in a world of wealth and luxury, but it was the first time someone in that world had made her feel like she mattered. Still, the reality of her life kept pulling her back. She had bills to pay, dreams that felt further away every day, and a job that didn't pay nearly enough to cover it all. She didn't have time for distractions. But the memory of Ethan lingered, like a faint melody that wouldn't let her forget. Then, a week later, she received a message from an unknown number. Hi, this is Ethan Parker. I hope you're doing well. I was wondering if you'd like to meet up again. No awkward blind date this time, just a coffee. My treat. The message was simple, yet it sent a rush of excitement through her chest. Was this really happening? Had he been thinking about her too? She paused for a moment, her finger hovering over the reply button. She was used to men not following through, to the fleeting moments of attention that disappeared once reality set in. But something about this message felt different. With a quick breath, she tapped out a response, I'd like that. How about tomorrow at 3? The next day, they met at a small cafe in the city, far from the luxury of the hotel where they had first met. The air was cool, the sunlight pouring in through the windows, casting a warm glow over the worn wooden tables. Sophia arrived first, nervous, but determined to keep her cool. She had told herself this would just be a casual coffee, nothing more. But when she saw Ethan walk through the door, her heart skipped a beat. He was dressed casually, in a sweater and jeans, looking just as handsome as she remembered, though his usual polished confidence seemed to be replaced by something else, vulnerability, maybe, or a quiet curiosity. As he spotted her, his face lit up in a smile, and he waved before making his way over. Hey, Sophia, he said, his voice warm. Good to see you again. Sophia stood up, smiling back, trying to hide the butterflies in her stomach. Good to see you too, she said, trying to sound calm. Thanks for suggesting this. They sat down, and for a few minutes, there was an easy silence as they both sipped their coffee. Ethan seemed content just to be with her, not rushing to fill the space with words. It was different from the nervous energy of their first meeting. This felt natural, comfortable. So, Ethan began after a while, his eyes meeting hers. How's your art going? Still dreaming of that studio? Sophia blinked, surprised by the question. It wasn't a typical small talk question. It was personal. He remembered. I'm getting there, she said, her voice quiet but hopeful. It's a slow process, but I'm working on a few pieces. I just need to find the time and resources to make it happen. Ethan nodded, his gaze thoughtful. I think you'll get there, he said. You've got a passion for it. That counts for a lot. Sophia's heart warmed at his words. It wasn't often that someone took her seriously. Most people saw her as just another struggling artist, just another waitress. But Ethan, for some reason, saw more. They continued talking for the next hour, discussing everything from art to life in the city to the oddities of the people they had met. It felt like a real connection, not just the forced conversation of a blind date, but something deeper, more genuine. Ethan seemed more open with her, more relaxed. She could tell he wasn't just being polite, he was truly interested in her. At the end of their conversation, Ethan stood up and smiled. You know, he said, I really enjoyed this. I'm glad we did this. Sophia stood too, surprised by the sudden feeling of sadness that washed over her. Was this just a one-time thing for him? Or did he really want to see her again? She didn't want to ask, didn't want to seem desperate. But her heart was hopeful, despite herself. Me too, she said, a small smile tugging at her lips. Thanks for the coffee. How about next time we do dinner? Ethan asked, his eyes sparkling. Somewhere a bit more casual. No table mix-ups this time, I promise. Sophia laughed softly, the sound light and carefree. I'd like that. As they parted ways, Sophia couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement building inside her. She had started to wonder if maybe this was more than just a casual coffee. Could Ethan really be interested in her, the real her? Or was this all just a game to him? Her mind raced with questions as she walked away, but one thing was clear, there was something between them, and she wasn't ready to let it go just yet. Little did she know, the next step in their story would be more unexpected than anything she could have imagined. The following week, Sophia and Ethan's casual dinners became a regular thing. At first, it was just dinners at small, cozy restaurants, no pressure, no expectations. They would talk for hours, about everything and nothing. Ethan would ask about her art, and Sophia would listen as he spoke about the tech world he thrived in. She was amazed at how different their lives were, yet how easy it felt to talk to him. It was like she could finally be herself without the fear of being judged. She found herself laughing at his dry humor and admiring the way he listened so intently to her. One evening, they met at a small Italian restaurant tucked away on a quiet street corner. The place was warm and inviting, a stark contrast to the cold city outside. They sat at a corner table by the window, the light from the street lamps casting soft shadows on the walls. The meal was simple but perfect, fresh pasta, a glass of wine, and their easy conversation filling the space between them. As the night wore on, Ethan leaned back in his chair, his eyes studying her. Sophia, he said, his voice thoughtful. You know, you're different from anyone I've met. Sophia raised an eyebrow, surprised by the intensity in his gaze. Different how? She asked, her curiosity piqued. He hesitated for a moment, as if choosing his words carefully. I don't meet many people who aren't trying to impress me. Who aren't just looking for something from me. But you? You're not like that. You don't care about my wealth or my status. You're just real. And I like that. His words were simple, but they hit her harder than she expected. Sophia felt a lump form in her throat. Well, I don't think much about those things. I've seen enough to know that money and status don't fix anything. People get lost in it, and they forget what really matters. She paused, thinking about how true those words were. I'd rather have something real, even if it's not perfect. Like art. It's not about making money, it's about creating something that speaks to you. She looked down at her wine glass, suddenly feeling a little vulnerable. Ethan's expression softened, and he reached across the table, gently placing his hand over hers. I think that's what I admire about you, he said quietly. You don't hide behind anything. You're not afraid to be yourself, even when it's difficult. His touch was warm, comforting, and for a moment, Sophia forgot everything, the doubts, the fears, the uncertainty about their situation. She met his gaze and found herself smiling. I'm just trying to figure things out, you know? But I think I'm starting to realize that maybe I'm not the only one who's lost. She could see the vulnerability in his eyes, a side of him he hadn't shown her before. The conversation drifted to lighter topics as the night went on, but something had shifted between them. There was an unspoken understanding now, a deeper connection that neither of them had anticipated. As they stood to leave, Ethan paid the bill, and they walked outside into the cool evening air. As they reached the sidewalk, Ethan turned to her. I've been thinking a lot about something lately, he said, his voice quieter now. About this, about us. I don't want to pretend anymore. I don't want this to just be some casual thing where we keep things light. I think I've found something real with you, Sophia. He looked at her, his eyes filled with sincerity. And I want to explore that. I don't know where it's going, but I want to see where it leads. Sophia felt a wave of emotions flood over her. She had been afraid of getting too close, afraid of what this could turn into, but hearing him say those words felt like a weight lifting off her shoulders. I think I want the same thing, she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. They stood there for a moment, the city lights twinkling around them, before Ethan took a step closer, his hand gently brushing against hers. Then let's see where this goes, he said with a smile. As they walked down the street, their fingers brushed again, and for the first time in a long time, Sophia felt like maybe, just maybe, she was finally on the right path. The path she had been afraid to take, but now, with Ethan by her side, it didn't seem so scary anymore. Little did she know, the next chapter of their journey would challenge both of them in ways they never expected. The days following their conversation felt like a new chapter for Sophia and Ethan. They continued seeing each other, but now things had shifted. There was a sense of ease between them, a quiet understanding that whatever was happening between them was real. They no longer felt like two people pretending to be something they weren't, but rather two people exploring what was possible, together. One evening, a few weeks later, Ethan invited Sophia to a charity gala. It was an event he had been planning for months, one that would bring together some of the city's most influential figures. Sophia was nervous, unsure of what to wear or how to act in such a high-profile setting. She had never been to an event like this before, and the thought of stepping into a room full of wealthy, polished people made her anxious. "You'll be fine," Ethan had assured her the night before, his voice warm and comforting. "Just be yourself. This is about us, not about fitting in with everyone else." But despite his reassurance, when the night arrived, Sophia still found herself doubting. She stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the simple black dress she had chosen. It wasn't extravagant, but it made her feel comfortable. She ran a brush through her hair one last time before grabbing her purse and heading out the door. When she arrived at the venue, Ethan was already there, standing by the entrance, waiting for her. He looked absolutely at ease in his sharp tuxedo, his usual confidence shining through. As soon as he saw her, his face broke into a smile. "You look amazing," he said, his eyes scanning her outfit, his gaze lingering on her with admiration. Sophia felt her nerves settle just a little. She had spent so much time worrying about not belonging, but in that moment, standing in front of Ethan, she realized that this wasn't about fitting in, it was about being with him. She smiled back at him, her heart warming. They entered the gala together, and as the night wore on, Sophia began to feel more comfortable. Ethan was by her side, introducing her to people with ease, making her feel included in conversations. She realized that the people around her, while wealthy and influential, weren't as intimidating as she had imagined. They were just people, after all, and she had just as much of a right to be there as anyone. As the evening went on, Ethan kept an eye on her, making sure she was comfortable. They danced together, and for a moment, it felt like the world had disappeared. Just the two of them, moving in sync, the music surrounding them, the soft glow of the chandeliers above. Sophia felt like she was in a dream. She never imagined she would be at a gala like this, but here she was, dancing with Ethan in the middle of it all. But as the night began to wind down, Sophia noticed something that made her stomach churn. Ethan had been called away to speak with someone, and as she stood alone for a moment, she overheard a conversation between two women nearby. "Did you hear about the new woman Ethan's been seen with?" one of them whispered. "She's not his usual type. I wonder how long this will last." The other woman chuckled softly. "He never sticks with anyone for long. I bet she's just a fling." Sophia's heart sank. She tried to shake off the words, but they lingered in her mind. She knew she shouldn't let it bother her, but something about it stung. Was she just another fling? Was Ethan really serious about her, or was this just another casual thing to him? The thought made her feel small, and she suddenly felt out of place again. The fear of not being enough, of not fitting into his world, crept back. When Ethan returned, he immediately noticed the change in her. "Are you okay?" he asked, his tone concerned. Sophia hesitated, unsure if she should say anything. But the words tumbled out before she could stop them. "I overheard something, people were talking about us. They said you never stick with anyone for long. That maybe I'm just another fling," she confessed, her voice shaky. "I know it sounds silly, but it made me wonder if that's true." Ethan's expression softened, and he gently took her hand. "Sophia, listen to me," he said, his voice steady. "I'm not like the others. I'm not just going to let you go. What we have is real. I care about you more than I can put into words. Don't let what anyone else says make you doubt that." Her heart fluttered at his words. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that what they were building was something real. But a small part of her still couldn't shake the fear that this could all fall apart. Ethan must have sensed her hesitation because he pulled her closer, his eyes locking with hers. "I know this is new for both of us," he said softly, "but I promise you, I'm not going anywhere. What I want, is you." The sincerity in his eyes melted away her doubt, and for the first time that evening, she felt a sense of peace wash over her. She smiled, her heart light with relief. "Okay," she whispered. "I trust you." And with that, the weight that had been pressing on her chest lifted, replaced by the warmth of Ethan's hand in hers. For the first time in a while, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, this was the real thing. As the weeks passed, the relationship between Sophia and Ethan grew stronger. They spent more time together, not just at fancy events, but also in the quiet moments, dinners at small, cozy restaurants, walks through the city, and late-night conversations that felt like they had all the time in the world. The doubts that had once lingered in Sophia's mind started to fade. She trusted him now, truly, and as the days went by, she realized that Ethan had become a part of her life in a way she hadn't expected. One evening, after a long week of work and meetings, Ethan invited her to his apartment for a quiet night in. Sophia was looking forward to it. She had grown accustomed to the way he made her feel, like she was enough, just as she was. No pretensions, no games. Just them, sharing their lives. When she arrived, Ethan greeted her with a warm hug, and the familiar smell of dinner filled the air. He had cooked for her, a simple dish of pasta and wine. As they sat down at the table, laughing over shared stories and memories, Sophia couldn't help but feel a sense of peace. She felt at home in his presence. "You know, I never thought I'd enjoy cooking," Ethan said, stirring his pasta. "But I've been trying to do more of it. I don't always have the time, but it's nice, you know. It's simple, and it's something I can do without anyone expecting anything in return." Sophia smiled, touched by his words. She had always thought of Ethan as this high-powered businessman, someone who thrived in the fast-paced world of tech. But now, sitting across from him, she was starting to see a different side of him. A side that wasn't just about success and status, but about genuine moments of connection. "I get it," she said softly, taking a bite of the pasta. "Sometimes the best things are the simplest. Like this. Just being here with you, enjoying a meal, talking about whatever comes to mind. It's nice." For a moment, they sat in silence, just enjoying each other's company. Ethan reached across the table and took her hand, his fingers brushing against hers. It was a simple gesture, but it held so much meaning. Sophia felt her heart race in her chest, and she realized that this was the moment she had been waiting for. "Sophia," Ethan said quietly, his voice serious now, "there's something I've been wanting to tell you. I've never felt this way about anyone before. The way you make me feel, like I can finally breathe, like I can just be myself, it's something I didn't even know I was missing." Sophia's breath caught in her throat. Her heart was beating faster now, and she could feel the weight of the words hanging between them. She knew what he was saying, and she felt the same way. "Ethan, I feel the same," she whispered, her voice full of emotion. "I never expected this. You came into my life when I least expected it, and somehow, you made everything feel possible. For the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm not just surviving. I'm living." Ethan squeezed her hand, his eyes softening. "You don't have to do this alone anymore, Sophia. I'm here. I want to be here for you, in every way that matters." Sophia looked into his eyes, and for the first time, she wasn't afraid. She wasn't afraid of what the future might hold, or of being vulnerable. She had learned to trust him, and now, she was ready to take the next step with him. As the night wore on, they talked about their dreams, their fears, and everything in between. They shared stories about their pasts, things they had never told anyone else. It felt like the walls between them had finally come down. In that moment, there was no pretense, no hesitation, just two people who had found something real. Later, as they sat on the balcony, watching the city lights sparkle in the distance, Ethan turned to her, his expression thoughtful. "I don't know what the future holds," he said, his voice soft, "but I know I want you in it. I don't want to go through life without you by my side. You're not just someone I want to be with, you're someone I need. I want to build a future with you." Sophia felt her heart swell in her chest. She never thought she would hear those words from him, and yet, here they were. She knew, without a doubt, that this was the beginning of something incredible. "I want that too, Ethan," she said, her voice steady, despite the emotions rushing through her. "I want to build a future with you." They sat together, their hands intertwined, the city sprawling before them, and for the first time in a long time, Sophia felt certain. The future wasn't so scary anymore, not with Ethan by her side. And as they leaned into each other, sharing a quiet, tender moment, they both knew that this was only the beginning of their journey. As the weeks passed, everything between Sophia and Ethan seemed to fall into place. They had become inseparable, sharing their dreams and supporting each other through the ups and downs. The simple nights in, laughing over takeout or watching movies, had become her favorite moments. It wasn't about the fancy dinners or events anymore. It was about the quiet moments they shared, the kind of moments that made her realize how much she had changed since meeting him. One afternoon, as Sophia was at her small studio working on a new painting, she got a call from Ethan. She wiped her hands on a cloth and picked up her phone, wondering what could be so urgent. "Hey, babe," Ethan's voice came through the phone, a little more serious than usual. "Can we talk?" Sophia felt a knot form in her stomach. She had learned by now that when Ethan used that tone, something was on his mind. "Of course. What's going on?" There was a pause before he spoke again. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said before. About building a future together. And I've come to a decision." Her heart skipped a beat, and she felt her breath catch in her throat. "What decision?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I want you to move in with me," he said, his voice steady but full of meaning. "I know we've only been together for a little while, but I'm not the kind of guy to waste time. I want us to be together, and I want you to be a part of my life in every way possible." Sophia sat down on the edge of her chair, stunned. She had always been independent, never relying on anyone else. The thought of moving in with Ethan, of sharing a space with him in a way that went beyond the casual, was both exciting and terrifying. But as she thought about it, she realized she wanted nothing more than to take this step with him. "Ethan, she started, unsure of what to say. She had been afraid of this moment, afraid of the vulnerability it would bring. But looking at the way he had supported her, encouraged her dreams, and never tried to change who she was, she felt like she could trust him completely. "I think I'd like that," she finally said, her voice filled with a quiet certainty. Ethan let out a breath of relief, and she could hear the smile in his voice as he spoke. "I'm so glad. I've already started looking for a place. Something big enough for both of us." I want us to build a life together, Sophia. Her heart swelled at his words. She never thought she would find someone who made her feel this way, someone who wanted to build a future, not just a relationship. She knew it wouldn't always be easy. There would be challenges ahead, but in that moment, she was ready to face them with him. I'm ready, Ethan, she said, a smile spreading across her face. Let's build that future together. That night, they sat down and started making plans. They talked about where they would live, what their life together would look like, and the little details that made them both feel excited for what was to come. Sophia couldn't remember the last time she had felt so sure of something. She was no longer just surviving, no longer just chasing after her dreams alone. She had Ethan by her side, and that made all the difference. As the days turned into weeks, they found a place, a cozy apartment with large windows and a balcony that overlooked the city. It wasn't extravagant, but it felt like home. Together, they made it their own, decorating it with paintings, plants, and little touches that reflected both their personalities. Moving in together wasn't without its challenges, but each obstacle they faced only made their bond stronger. They learned to compromise, to communicate, and to appreciate the quiet moments even more. Sophia had never imagined she would be living in a place like this, with someone like Ethan, but as she sat on their balcony one evening, watching the sun set over the city, she couldn't imagine being anywhere else. You know, Ethan said one evening, as they sat together on the couch, I never thought I'd find someone who gets me the way you do. Sophia smiled, leaning her head on his shoulder. Same here. I used to think I had to do everything on my own. But now I see that the best things in life are worth sharing. They sat in comfortable silence, their hands intertwined, and Sophia realized that the future they had talked about was no longer a distant dream. It was here, right in front of them, and it was everything they had imagined. The love they had built was real, and together, they could face anything. And so, their journey continued, full of promise and love. They didn't know what the future held, but one thing was certain, they were ready to face it, side by side. Months passed since Sophia and Ethan moved in together, and life had become a beautiful rhythm. They had their share of challenges, of course, but there was an undeniable peace in the way they worked through everything side by side. Their apartment, once empty and impersonal, was now filled with laughter, artwork, and the little details that spoke of their shared life, photos, plants, and cozy corners that had become their sanctuary. One Saturday afternoon, Ethan was busy with work, his laptop open in front of him, papers scattered across the table. Sophia, on the other hand, had taken the day off to work on a new painting she had been meaning to finish for weeks. She stood by the window, her brush strokes slow but purposeful, the afternoon sunlight spilling into the room, casting a warm glow on the canvas. She felt a deep sense of gratitude, something she hadn't felt in a long time. She thought back to those early days, the confusion, the doubts, and the fear of letting someone in. But Ethan had proven, time and time again, that he was someone she could trust. He never pressured her, never tried to change her. He had simply accepted her as she was. And now, they were building something real together, something that felt like home. As she continued painting, her phone buzzed with a message. It was from Ethan. Sophia, can you meet me at the gallery? I need you for something important. She frowned slightly. Ethan hadn't mentioned anything about a gallery. Curious, she quickly packed up her things and made her way to the local art gallery they often visited together. When she arrived, she was surprised to see Ethan standing by the entrance, nervously adjusting his jacket. Hey, what's going on? She asked, a playful smile on her lips. Ethan looked at her, a slight nervousness in his eyes. I know this is a little unexpected, but I wanted to show you something. And, well, I need your help. Sophia raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Ethan motioned for her to follow him, and they walked through the gallery, passing paintings and sculptures she had admired many times. But today, the space felt different. The soft lighting, the quiet hum of the air conditioning, everything seemed to draw her attention to what Ethan was about to reveal. As they reached the back of the gallery, Ethan stopped in front of a large blank wall. I've been thinking a lot about your art, he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. And I wanted to do something special for you. This wall. I want it to be yours. I want to dedicate this space to your work. Sophia blinked, confused at first. What do you mean? You want to give me the wall? Ethan nodded. Yes. I want you to have your own exhibit here. I've already spoken with the gallery manager, and they're on board. We're going to showcase your paintings, your dreams, everything you've been working on. I know you've been hesitant about showing your work, but I believe in you, Sophia. I always have. Sophia stood frozen, her heart racing. This wasn't just a surprise, it was an incredible gift. A chance to show her art to the world, a chance she had only dreamed about. She couldn't believe it. Ethan. I don't know what to say, she whispered, her voice trembling. Ethan stepped closer, his hand gently brushing hers. You don't need to say anything. You've earned this. You've worked so hard, and I want to see you succeed. You deserve to have your dreams realized, and I'm here to help make that happen. Sophia felt tears welling up in her eyes. This moment, this gesture of kindness and belief, was more than she could have ever asked for. She had always been afraid of taking the leap, of putting herself out there, but Ethan's faith in her made it feel possible. Thank you, she said softly, her voice breaking with emotion. I never thought I'd get a chance like this. But now, I know I can do it. I just needed someone to believe in me. Ethan smiled, his eyes filled with warmth. I've always believed in you, Sophia. You just had to believe in yourself too. They stood there for a moment, their hands intertwined, both overwhelmed by the beauty of the moment. For Sophia, this was a turning point, a moment that marked not just the success of her art, but the realization of everything she had been working toward. And with Ethan by her side, she knew there was nothing she couldn't accomplish. As they left the gallery together, walking hand in hand, the world outside seemed brighter, more full of possibility. Sophia knew that this was just the beginning of her journey, and with Ethan's support, she was ready to embrace everything that was coming her way. The day of Sophia's first art exhibition arrived, and it felt like a dream. The gallery, once just a place she visited to admire other artists' work, now stood as the setting for her own creations. The walls were lined with her paintings, each one telling a story, each one representing a part of her journey. It was everything she had hoped for, and yet, as she stood there, surrounded by her art, she felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. The people who walked through the gallery were admiring her work, but it was Ethan's presence that gave her the courage to truly step into the spotlight. She could feel his supportive gaze on her as she mingled with the guests. He had been there every step of the way, from helping her choose the paintings to hang, to giving her words of encouragement when the self-doubt crept in. He wasn't just her partner, he was her biggest cheerleader. And as she looked around the room, her heart swelled with emotion. This wasn't just her achievement, it was theirs. Ethan had believed in her when she had doubts, and now, her dreams were coming true. As the evening went on, Sophia found herself talking to several people who were genuinely impressed with her work. She felt a sense of accomplishment that was hard to put into words. For so long, she had kept her art to herself, unsure of whether anyone would truly appreciate it. But now, here she was, standing in the midst of people who saw the value in her work, who believed in her the way Ethan did. At one point, she found herself standing next to Ethan, taking a quiet moment to observe the gallery. He stood beside her, his hand casually resting on her back, a reassuring presence. "You did it," he said softly, his voice filled with pride. "I knew you could. You're amazing." Sophia smiled, her heart full. She had never imagined a day like this, but with Ethan by her side, everything felt possible. She turned to him, her eyes meeting his. "I couldn't have done it without you," she said quietly. "You pushed me when I was scared, believed in me when I didn't believe in myself." Ethan gently lifted her chin, his eyes locking onto hers. "You had the talent all along, Sophia. All I did was remind you of that." For a moment, they stood there in silence, the buzz of the gallery around them fading into the background. It was just the two of them, sharing a moment that felt intimate, even in the middle of a crowded room. The evening went on, but it felt like time slowed down for Sophia. She felt a sense of peace, of fulfillment, of knowing that this was only the beginning. She had never thought this day would come, but now, standing here with Ethan, she realized that anything was possible if she just took that first step. As the night came to a close, Ethan took her hand and led her outside, where the cool evening air felt refreshing after the warmth of the gallery. The city lights sparkled in the distance, and for a moment, Sophia just stood there, breathing in the beauty of it all. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice full of emotion. "For everything." Ethan smiled, his eyes softening. "You've done all the hard work, Sophia. This is your moment. And I'm just happy to be here, sharing it with you." They walked together through the streets, hand in hand, knowing that whatever the future held, they would face it together. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in her life, Sophia felt confident and ready. She had found not only her passion but also the love and support she needed to make her dreams come true. And with Ethan by her side, she knew that no matter what came next, she could conquer anything. Months passed, and life with Ethan had settled into something comfortable and beautiful. Sophia's art career had taken off in ways she had never imagined. The success of her first exhibition led to more opportunities, gallery shows, private commissions, and a growing following of people who admired her work. She still had moments of doubt, of course, but with Ethan's unwavering support, she had learned to embrace the journey, to trust in herself and in their partnership. One evening, as they sat on their balcony, watching the sun dip below the skyline, Ethan turned to her with a smile, his eyes shining. "You've come so far," he said softly. "I'm so proud of you." Sophia smiled back, her heart full. She had come a long way, but she knew it wasn't just her doing. It was the love, the encouragement, and the belief that Ethan had shown her every single day. He had become her rock, her partner in every sense of the word. "I never thought I could be here," Sophia admitted, her voice quiet but steady. "When I was younger, I never thought I'd have this life, this success. But with you, it feels possible. You believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself." Ethan reached for her hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. "You were always capable of this, Sophia. I just helped you see it. She leaned her head on his shoulder, the warm evening breeze rustling her hair. It was in these moments, these small, quiet moments, that she felt the most content. It wasn't the fame or the recognition that mattered. It was the love they shared, the life they had built together. As time went on, Sophia and Ethan continued to grow closer, their bond deepening with each passing day. They took on new challenges, celebrated victories, and supported each other through tough times. Their connection wasn't just about the big moments, but the small ones too, the cups of coffee shared in the morning, the quiet walks through the park, the way they could communicate without saying a word. One day, as they were walking home from a dinner with friends, Ethan stopped in front of their building, looking down at Sophia with a smile that made her heart skip a beat. "I have something for you," he said, reaching into his jacket pocket. He pulled out a small, velvet box, and for a moment, Sophia's breath caught in her throat. "Ethan, what?" she started, her voice filled with surprise. He opened the box to reveal a delicate ring, the diamonds sparkling in the moonlight. "Sophia, I love you. I've loved you from the moment I met you. And I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you marry me?" Sophia's eyes filled with tears as she looked up at him, overwhelmed by the love and commitment in his eyes. "Yes," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Yes, I will." Ethan slid the ring onto her finger, and they embraced, the world around them disappearing as they held each other close. It was in that moment that Sophia realized that her dreams weren't just about art or success. They were about building a life with someone who loved her, who saw her for who she truly was, and who would be there through it all. As they stood together, their future ahead of them, Sophia knew that this was the beginning of something even more beautiful. They had come so far, and yet, this was just the start of their journey. Together, they could face anything. And as they walked into their apartment hand in hand, ready to begin the next chapter of their lives, Sophia knew that the love they had found was the greatest masterpiece of all.